We've got 2 to go. There are 2 to go, and then we put racing to bed for a little bit, but there's a lot to talk about first. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Lapdown Podcast. My name's Alex. The next voice you're going to hear is Dan, and we've got about half an hour's worth of F1 chat for you now about various things that are both related to F1 and probably not related to F1. But Dan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm loaded with tangents. I'm ready for this. We've got half an hour. We may talk about the Formula One for 15 minutes, and we may talk about other stuff for 15 minutes. But I'm quite looking forward to the now that it's all done and dusted, because it is now, isn't it? I'm quite looking forward to this winter break. One, because it feels like Formula One goes on for a long time, and two, because I think it's going to give us, you and I, a really good opportunity to take stock of what we've kind of started to create here with this Lapdown thing, and maybe think about firstly, how we're going to fill the winter, if we're going to fill the winter, and also what that kind of looks like in 2025 as well, because strangely, there are people listening to this stuff and interacting with it as well, which is really good.
Bold choices.
Thank you so much to all of you that have been part of this so far. But yes, we did have a Vegas.
A Vegas happened. Vegas.
It's weird that we're allowed to talk about it, because I thought the T-shirt said that what happens there stays there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But no, a Vegas happened. And I'm going to say it, and I know that you're not necessarily the world's biggest Viva Las Vegas chap, but Vegas is kind of 2 from 2 as a Grand Prix, and everyone wanted to laugh at it when it first happened, and what it's proving to be is the nerdy kid with glasses that takes the glasses off and his dick's 9 inches long and he's really good at shagging. So, well done, Vegas. F1 podcast. That's what I've got for you. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, he's packing.
Yeah.
He's packing. I mean, similar to, right. So let's unpack this similar to that 9-inch package that we've just spoken about.
Yeah.
It's got 4 straights and it's got 4 corners. Like, you could look kind of whatever you look like and have whatever technique in the world. If you've got a 9-inch pipe going on, it's probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
There's only so much that can go wrong with it. So that's kind of where my kind of thoughts are. But I'm not taking away from the fact that it is 2 from 2, because it was all right. But maybe if we raced on square tracks 28 times in the year, maybe it would work.
Now, what you're pitching there is NASCAR.
No, because that's just one big circle.
NASCAR with corners, like sharper
just
bends.
4 90-degree bends. Okay, right, hear me out. Baku.
Here we go.
Baku.
Yep.
Start, finish straight. Turn 1, turn 2, back straight. And then instead of turning right and going around all that fiddly crap through that little castle, just turn left and turn left again. And we just have a square. We have another Vegas.
And you're away. I think it is weird, though, isn't it? Because everyone likes to laugh at the track map, and yes, it objectively looks like Spider Pig, and that's not a fact that we're getting away from. But there was someone the other day, and I like to pull out terrible Reddit chatter on this, but someone the other day was like, oh, well, Las Vegas is such a stupid Grand Prix, I can't get over the fact it looks like a pig. I'm like, does it matter? Like, the track map does not make any difference. And if they never showed you the track map in the first place, you wouldn't moan about the track because you think, watching that on board, I can't help but get the sense if I was to look at this from above, it would look like a cartoon pig upside down. It just seems to, and I mean, it probably shouldn't be a surprise that a professional track designer was able to design a track professionally. But yes, it's got a couple of very long straights, but long straights that lead into hard braking zones are what we want, because they're an opportunity for mistakes and they're an opportunity for overtaking. And yeah, it just seems to deliver good racing without needing rain or, a red flag that messes with your tyre strategy. It just produced a good 2-stop multi-strategy race. Cars drove past each other.
Yeah.
Believe that.
I mean, it didn't need rain, and it didn't need any other kind of freak conditions other than the fact that it was about 7 degrees outside and the track temperature was the coldest
it's like Mexico
it's ever been.
Low.
So it is a little bit funky on that side. Yes, a professional track designer designed it, but it's not a purpose-built track. There's only literally so much you can do with the distance that's required, knowing the fact that it's going to have to run down the strip, because the last time they went to Vegas and they ran it in Caesars car park, it was a monumental failure. They're not... Okay, right. Racing aside, that's fine, and if it's there to stay, we know we've got one more year for it. But that isn't my big. That's not my big kind of quip with Vegas. There's other issues I think with this. One, I never ever get the sense that anybody is ever there. Like, I think there is a grandstand down the start finish straight, and I'm fairly sure if you squint, you can just about see. But it never gives you any indication there's anybody there. Yeah. And I know it's run in the nighttime, so therefore, like, natural light and stuff. It's not going to be Silverstone where the camera's going to pan around and it's going to be like, wow, look at all of this stuff. But normally, Formula One events make quite a big song and dance about the crowd that's there and that are watching. And someone does an overtake and it pans to the crowd and everyone's going, woo, like this. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in Vegas. It is literally 5 kilometers of illuminated tarmac with darkness on either side. Even the hotels don't look particularly impressive down there. I don't know whether that's because they could only use the portion of the strip that went past the bits of the hotels that actually aren't that cool. Like, maybe they've got like the Wynn and the Caesars and, oh yeah, it's nice and it looks cool in the daylight and the fountains, but it's dark and you can't see anything. Also, Vegas is a busy place. I've been there. I have been there. And there's nobody about at all. There's literally nobody there, ever. And I don't understand what it is there for other than to maybe force a sport on a market that doesn't particularly want it. And finally, the best thing about it is when they get back out of those Rolls Royces, having driven backwards around the circuit, and they stand on that silly little plinth over the pond in front of the Bellagio, and the drone shot or pan it is, and all you've got is amazing free marketing for CVS, which, depending on where you are in the world, is basically a Boots. Yeah. So if you want to pop down Vegas High Street, you've had too many beers the night before, at least you know where a CVS is and you can go and get yourself some paracetamol. And that's all I could see. That's all my eyes were drawn on for that bit with Terry Crews, was this bright red CVS thing in the top left-hand corner of my screen. I was going, I think I've been in there.
Yeah. I'm going to be so contrary to your a good long run from Jad's there. I liked that. He's steamed in. I couldn't give a fuck about the crowd at an F1 race, and it irritates me in the normal broadcast where I'm trying to watch a battle and then we have to cut away to watch 2 people that are wearing a McLaren t-shirt going, yay! Because I don't give a fuck. So I would quite happily have behind closed doors F1 races, because they don't offer anything to me, the crowd.
Well, you did say last week you don't want to go, so...
I don't want to go. Yeah, it's probably all related, but I just want to watch the racing, and I want to go watch the cars go around in a squiggly circle for a little bit. So I don't really care about a lack of crowd. I do agree that it seems... The whole big hype was how much of a spectacle it's going to be to have these cars tearing down the Las Vegas Strip. And I think everyone kind of forgot that you can't just put the cars on the strip and keep the walls down to curb height so that we can see all that stuff, because you've got Tech Pro and then catch fence and then lighting rigs and then sponsor boards, and all of a sudden we're 8 stories up and you can't even see that fake Eiffel Tower thing that they've got, and you just see the very top of the sphere poking over the top. So, and
if you've ever been, those hotels are set a fair way back from that main street as well. It's not like they're not kind of on the curb, kind of towering over the side, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe the hotels could have put some Christmas lights up or something.
It could be, apart from the odd helicopter shot where you get a wider view and you see some more twinklies. It could be Singapore still, in terms of it's an illuminated track in a lot of darkness. I think Singapore probably, for your point, has a similar thing where you don't see a huge amount of crowd in Singapore, and you get some more overpass highway action in Singapore.
Yeah, you see somebody driving over the top in a Honda Accord every now and again, don't you?
So chill and bust. I don't care massively about the fans and the fluff around it. I would take a better track with no external atmosphere than a worse track with atmosphere. I felt this year Vegas was less cringy with the off-track stuff. As a Grand Prix, I don't know whether it's because we just saw less of it, there was less outrage because it was different, maybe they didn't do as much this year, but it didn't seem as memey, or Vegas previously kind of seemed like a bit of a shitpost Grand Prix.
But that's what Vegas is, mate.
But this year it didn't, though. No, this year just felt like a normal Grand Prix weekend at a funny time to me.
But then therefore it loses its specialness.
I don't care about that.
Vegas is that. Yeah, but Vegas is that kind of tacky, kind of wild place that you can go and be anything you want to be. And if it isn't going to provide something a bit different, why is it in Vegas? Like if we're not kind of really pulling on the Vegas strings, and we're not having like a glitched up Elvis doing the trophy presentation, and the cars are kind of going down through an illuminated tunnel through Caesar's Palace or whatever, or anything like that, through those little Elon Musk Tesla tubes or something that they might have kicking around. Like, if they're not going to really go big on the fact that it is Vegas, like one of the coolest cities in the world, depending on what you enjoy doing, what's the point? Why not just have it in Northampton or Bognor Regis?
We do have one in Northampton. It's the Silverstone Grand Prix.
You do, okay, but it's not a street circuit yet. But you could just... This is the thing for me. It's like, play up for it, make it Vegasy, or go and put it somewhere else where people are actually going to appreciate it. Because other than that, I don't see much point. I don't see it making money. I mean, it is
making money. I think it's making quite a bit of money, and they would have run all their books on this a long time ago to make sure it did make money without ticket sales. The ticket sales are not what's making a Grand Prix, profitable.
Hospitality packages and everything like that. But
so I will ask the question, I suppose, would you rather good racing at a weird, soulless venue and not put the cringy Vegas stuff on it? Or would you, like, say you have the same race, right? Let's ignore anything else. The same 70 laps or whatever it is happens. Mm-hmm. Objectively, would you prefer those 70 laps to be sandwiched with meminess? Yeah. Or would you, so you would actually prefer, see, I would just get on with the racing, lads. Like, I'm not fussed about the meme stuff, and it doesn't really matter to me where it is. They could do all of them in... They could buy a load of countryside and just build 24 tracks, and we'll just move from one to the next. So I'm not as fussed about that, unless it's the Spanish version of the F1 theme song, in which case I am very interested in that.
Well, you'll hear that next year when they go race around the multi-story car park in Asda in Madrid.
But yeah, and this probably as well is, again, maybe another one of our sort of like heritage differences, that I imagine sort of the older school F1 is all, not all, almost all actual tracks with, just people sat on grass banks watching on the, on the other side of a 4-high tire wall and that sort of stuff. So I maybe come in with it in sort of the almost video game version of, if it's not track, it's just a 4 FPS GIF of one character going like this, who's just repeated a couple of thousand times. But do you think it's going to get extended? Do you think the F1 Grand Prix in Las Vegas will be extended?
Honestly, I have a 50-50 shot. I have absolutely no idea. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Yes, I think the racing has been okay. But I think as a package, as a circuit, I think you could go and plonk that down in anywhere around the world. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't matter to kind of replicate that. As I said, 4 corners and 4 straights, you could plonk it at any city in the world. And if they wanted to put it as a bit of a rotating thing, I'm not sure. Do the drivers like it? I mean, they say they do, but I'm not sure how many guns Liberty Media have kind of pointing at their faces when they get asked those questions. Like when Max kind of turns around and goes, well, yeah, but I've kind of been used to getting to sleep at like 5 o'clock in the morning because of the practice sessions. I don't know whether they're that interested in it. It's a bit of an outlier in where it is in the calendar. I would imagine it's an inconvenience logistically for teams. I would have thought the feedback from the teams would be quite happily lose it, but I don't necessarily think they get any say in that whatsoever.
So Dan loves the Vegas Grand Prix is the summary of this section of the podcast.
I will say, like, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch it, probably with the benefit of hindsight, wasn't the greatest thing to do in the world, because you're just not paying that much attention at 6 a.m, are you? Like,
someone
you're thinking
tried to tell you.
No, I know, but sometimes you have to learn these things for yourself.
Yeah. I think if they hadn't have built their permanent office base building thing there, and if they didn't own the paddock and all the rest of it, I dare say it would be more at risk. But I think they've got slightly more sort of like skin in the game, don't they, on it? It did still, however... well, no, I think the Vegas Grand Prix had a missed opportunity for me with the meme stuff extra around the track. Do you not think the World Drivers' Champion should get a mini podium celebration on the weekend that they win the I know the presentation happens later at an awards ceremony, and officially he's not the Drivers' Champion. Is he officially even the Drivers' Champion now? I mean, is there a way you can lose points in Formula One? Like, I know mathematically if everything's above board, he can't be overtaken. Yeah. But can you lose? Can you have points deducted?
I don't think it's ever happened, but I don't suspect I'm sure there's a way that you could retrospectively disqualify people for having kind of technical infringements that they shouldn't have had. But it is quite funny, isn't it, that kind of everybody no one really got that hyped about it, because Lando from probably 3-4 months ago was never really going to catch it up. He had to have kind of a perfect 6 months, and the likelihood of that happening was very slim. And he kind of got the hype, didn't we, about Max crossing the line and the 4th consecutive year that he's going to be World Driver's title. And then it goes, but we do have to wait for the official presentation, which will happen later this year, which will be behind closed doors, that you might be able to watch on TV if you're lucky. And sometimes the drivers who finish 2nd and 3rd can't even be bothered to turn up. So
take the fine.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything they've ever particularly done, to be honest with you, unless it's gone down to that kind of final race and they've had a real kind of shootout for it. But
we got the throne in Japan, didn't we? Which was one of the more awkward moments ever. But
how would you have liked Vegas to have celebrated Max Verstappen? Okay, right, I'm going to give you an open checkbook here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you 30 seconds on the clock to paint me the perfect world champion presentation with Max Verstappen in go.
I don't even think you need a lot, though. I don't think I need a big checkbook, because they've already got a big fuck-off podium there already. It's all set up. It's got LED screens. You can put whatever you want on the screens already. So take the 2nd and 3rd one away. I just can't help but feel that we should have celebrated Max Verstappen more in the moment. You know, yes, he got an interview with Terry Crews. That's great. I'd love an interview with Terry Crews. What a treat in itself. But he got to go in a car, and then he got to go mid-interviewed, and then we just never heard from him again until he got drunk and started doing media interviews that he probably shouldn't have been allowed to do while he was literally holding a gin and tonic. But I just feel like we probably should have let him have a moment in that moment, you know? So just stick it, and I don't think it's anything overly special, but I think you have the podium celebration for the race that's just happened, and then once you've finished that, the other outcome of the race that's just happened that you've celebrated is, and now your, 2024 World Drivers Champion is Max Verstappen. He can come out, and for the 18 millionth time, we can listen to the Dutch national anthem, and you can make the background gold or whatever, and have a second confetti thing. And let's get those Getty photos instead of pit lane 4 and the sort of normal race-winning photos. Let's have a moment for mum for the fridge, the big send-up moment. That was my only thing, and I know it's maybe not necessarily been done in the past, and I'm probably trying to instigate something new or whatever. But I kept watching the broadcast. I usually turn off for the podium. I'm not that fussed about it. I kept the broadcast running, thinking like, I'm interested to see what the Vegas version of congratulations, your World Drivers' Championship is. And it turns out the answer was nothing.
Was it made worse by the fact that the 4 of them got shipped off in Rolls-Royce Corniches back down somewhere completely detached from the one grandstand and the pit lane? And each time that Jenson Button and Terry Crews were kind of answering these questions and they were answering them, it kind of cut back every now and again to like the Red Bull mechanics stood in the pit lane with their hands in their pockets, like going...
Yeah,
like if that was up on a podium with them, like all celebrating together and kind of reacting to Max and kind of spraying the champagne underneath the podium and stuff like that, it just felt, well, it was that this is why it felt detached. It's because it was because it was about 1.5 kilometers away from where everybody else was. So that was weird, and I think maybe that's where it might have kind of devalued the moment slightly more than what it would have done if it was in a Japan or in a Qatar or in a Dubai or whatever that might have been. So, yeah, that's just my thought on it.
I will say, big fan of the cool-down car for post-race as opposed to the cool-down room. Because, first of all, they seem to somehow mic up a car better than they mic up the cool-down room. And we seem to get more driver chat in the car than we do in the cool-down room. And it's also just funny that they're all in there like this because they've been crammed. It's a big car, and yet you put 3 F1 dudes in the back of it, and they're like this, like going away on a family holiday. And I just love the idea that we could have an incredibly awkward cool-down car moment if, like, first and second had an incident or something in the race, and they're a little bit angry with each other, and now they have to sit there while mum goes to fuel up at a service that's halfway down. I think we should do that. I think we should have a cool-down car that does a lap in the cool-down car after every Grand Prix. Instead of the cool-down room, turn the aircon on the car. That'll be fine. You can get a bottle of water in there like an Uber. I think that's got so much value as a post-race cool-down. Give me that.
I mean, yeah, why not? I suspect you'll be having manufacturers fight over you for the opportunity to provide those contracts
in
in
the
those
safety
cars.
car.
So there you go. There's a bit more money that you can spend on some more Vegas glitz and glamour that doesn't get used.
I know.
Right, can we stop talking about Vegas now? Because I'm a bit bored of it.
Well, there's two side notes that aren't Vegas specifically, but have come out of Vegas. And one of them is an incredible stat, and one of them is an incredible blow-up. Which would you like to talk about first?
Let's go statistics, and then we can go blow up.
So this is the first time ever now in 2024 that we've had 7 unique multiple race winners in a season, which when you think about it is actually, the more you process that, it's a wild stat that we have had 22 races of 24, and we've got 7 different blokes that have, had 14 of those between them, plus obviously some other ones. Never happened before. Is 2024 an all-time F1 season as a result?
No.
Ooh. Interesting. And is that because you're looking for an all-time season to be a direct championship battle as opposed to racing and intrigue and multiple winners and it not being a runaway?
I reckon I could name you about 10 without spending too much time doing it that would surpass and piss all over 2024.
Interesting.
And I know that sounds really kind of reactionary, but it's been great. It's been fun to see what we have for this. Let's call it as well for the second half of the season, because the first half of the season was Red Bull dominance
races or
again,
whatever,
which is exactly why we've got to this stage where Max has won the World Championship with about 2 3/4 races to spare. So yeah, we need for it to be a great season. It could be all the races could be won by 2 drivers, but if they went Max Lando, Max Lando, Max Lando, Max Lando, Max Lando, and you get to Abu Dhabi and they're equal points, that is the banging season. Like the ones where Senna and Prost have crashed at Suzuka on lap 1, where Schumacher and Hill have gone head-to-head in 96 and 95, when Hamilton and Verstappen went head-to-head in 2021. They're the seasons that you remember. This is another Max Verstappen. By the time the dust has settled on it, this is another dominant Max Verstappen season, which hopefully in 2025, it's all building nicely towards the fact that we've had, as you said, 7 different race winners and we've had 6 double race winners, and it's been the most ever. And hopefully we can package all of that up, take it to 2025, and then we might get to Vegas next year and we might have 4 drivers that are going, wow, any one of these 4 could win the World Drivers' title. And 2025 could be one of the ones that you go, yep, top 5 season ever.
Cool. No, it's just an interesting... It's how you sort of want to intake the sport, I guess, as how you sort of attribute value to it. If you're more of a racing fan than necessarily a team fan, there's more value in turning up and not knowing. And again, we'll preface it, we're talking, Miami onwards or whenever it was that Red Bull fell off a cliff. That back half of the year, turning up and going, well, there are 7 blokes Sergio Perez that in theory have an ability to win this race today, which I suppose for a more casual fan or a more fan of the sport, as yay cars going around, I don't care who is under the helmet, they could be robots or whatever, is a good
Might
thing.
not be far away, to be fair.
Well, yeah, they did try, didn't they? And it didn't end particularly well, the old AI-powered cars in Abu Dhabi in a couple of weeks. And then we'll go to our all-time blow-up, because Charles Leclerc, angry boy. Deservedly so, I think. But Charles Leclerc has just delivered some all-time team radio there, both during race and post-race.
What was your... So for those that don't know, he threw his dollies out the pram because Carlos was meant to not put him under pressure. Which, to be fair, I don't think Carlos did put him under a great deal of pressure. He just breezed past him and just waved on his way past.
It's not like they were battling and he was getting his elbows out or he was defending against him. Like, he didn't really hold him up. He was just quick. He's quick. He's a good driver.
And following on from that, there were various radio messages throughout the race and after the race, and Charles just essentially lost his dolly, didn't he? Big time. With that reaction, how do you feel that affects Charles going forward? as a Formula One driver for the last two races of 2024 and then going into 2025, where he's obviously going to have a new, essentially a big brother to kind of look up to in Ferrari.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he's going from already fighting with a bloke the same, I'm gonna say the same age and the same size as him.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a twin brother who he's currently fighting with and having arguments with and punching.
Ferrari
and
put
then
him up for adoption.
Yeah. And then he's next year, got a stepbrother coming in who's twice his age and twice his size and has a girlfriend and smokes weed and he's the cool guy. And it's going to be very interesting because I think he the sports psychologist will tell him, you need to do the opposite now and you need to become almost Mr. Invisible and just live, embrace the shadow and just focus on the racing and then get to the end of the year. People go, oh shit, Charles won the head-to-head, in quali, 14-10 or something, or, just and go that way. I don't get the sense that that's going to happen. I get the sense slightly, and I'm not going to try and extrapolate too far and get too carried away with it. Is this a little bit of a case of Charles Leclerc maybe seeing doors and routes to a driver's championship closing a little bit? Not that the doors have closed, but or certainly that he has to fight through those doors more than perhaps it was shaping up to have been previously. I mean, he's never had an actual run at the World Drivers' Championship realistically, but he's been in some good spots where Ferrari have then fucked him, and then he's now in a good Ferrari car compared to the rest of the field, and next year he's got Lewis Hamilton coming to sit alongside him, and he's not going to be a number one driver.
No.
And I just wonder if it's a frustration as much as anything that in that particular moment he was able to latch on to something and let it carry on. And I do think, again, not trying to be a sports psychologist or feeling like I know anything, or even we need to be very careful about hot-headed. Hamilton says this all the time. Like, what people say on the team radio in the car in the heat of the moment is very often actually it's the joke of like, oh, that was out of character for me. Can be genuinely out of character once they go, and Alex Albon's very good at owning up to that.
Yeah.
So it could be something in that as well, that he's had his all-time blow-up, and maybe that if he hadn't have accidentally pressed his team radio button, we wouldn't have heard it. It would have been between Charles and his helmet and the car. And then he comes into the media pen and he's all smiling. He's had a glass of water and he says, oh, yeah, well, heat of the moment. I didn't expect Carlos to be there. I got a little bit caught off guard by that and it surprised me. Onwards to Qatar. He's brought this on himself by punching the wheel and accidentally hitting the radio button, which is just cinema.
Yeah. I echo those points with regards to Lewis. I think he can outperform Lewis. Like, we know that Lewis is on that downward trajectory towards the end of his career, and it's kind of been shown this year, the year before against George, that maybe he's not quite as kind of intimidating as a teammate as what he has been in the past. But whatever state Lewis Hamilton is, the person that sat next to him is not going to be the number one driver. No. Lewis Hamilton is never going to be the number two driver for the rest of his Formula One career. Even if Max Verstappen came and sat next to him, he is not going to be a number two. They might be equals, but nobody is ever going to take preference over Lewis. So, to be fair, I mean, Ferrari have really never delivered an opportunity to win a World Drivers' title since, 2008, 2009, I think it was. Was it 2009 that Kimi won the World Drivers' title in the Ferrari, potentially? Not sure.
That's pre-DTS, I'm afraid.
Yeah, good point. 2008 was obviously when Glock was going slowly and Massa got robbed from the World Drivers' title at the end of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Yeah, I don't know. It's towards the end of a disappointing season, and I'm sure Charles will probably look back on opportunities and he'll think that maybe it could have been him that was kind of clinging to the coattails like Lando was. But no better than that, because again, we had 6-7 weeks of Red Bull dominance where Max just stormed away and got 26 points a weekend, and that was the end of it was almost the end of the World Drivers' title before the championship had even started. Yeah.
Do you see next year at Ferrari Leclerc and Hamilton being genuinely on par in terms of how the team treat them? Not necessarily to a point of team orders, but do you see them both getting 50-50 split on preferential strats and all the rest of it? Or do you think, even if they do it more casually and aren't quite so obvious with it, do you think they will favour one or the other, and if so, which?
I think for starters, they'll be equal. But this might sound really quite offensive, but I think it'll be easier to be submissive, for want of a better word, to a 7.5 times world champion that's got a couple of years left in the sport, that's got a knighthood that everybody looks up to, than a Spaniard that's just been dumped out of the team and isn't even going to be in the building next year.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Just because he's their golden boy, isn't he, Leclerc, as well? And that's what I think muddles it a little bit. It's not as if they've got a different... It's not him up against just any good driver, and it's not necessarily a Norris situation at Ferrari where they've sort of brought a guy in. Charles has always sort of been on that sort of in the poster, red, hasn't he? Which is what makes it interesting. But yeah, I mean, next year's going to be a banger. I'm calling it already. All of what we've discussed there's already narratives for next year, and let alone the fact that in theory the cars shouldn't get any further apart. I don't think teams are going to be doing too much dev on the 25 car with 26 around the corner, because I think from January they're allowed to work on 26 in earnest. And so I just don't see, unless someone decides they really want it, they probably could. But at this point, how many tenths are you realistically finding for the effort and time that you have to put in for it?
Yeah.
Let's talk Qatar then, shall we? Because we've got Qatar coming around the corner. We're sprinting again this weekend. Have you missed the sprints?
I have. Yep. Every weekend.
And that's all.
Every weekend. I told you earlier, just give it every weekend. Just go for it.
We've got some track changes in Qatar. Those absolute serrated knife curbs.
The cheese graters
have been filed down, so they're a little flatter now, and we've added some gravel around the outside of some corners. What I will say about gravel and walls and track limits and all the rest of it is we need to get rid of this narrative of, if we have gravel, we don't need track limits. Because they're not the same thing. They are two entirely unrelated things, because the track is still the track regardless of what is, 10 centimetres outside the track. So people need to stop with this, if there's gravel, we don't need to worry about track limits. You can do what you want on that corner. Because that's just, the racetrack is the racetrack. Stay on the racetrack, and you got no problem.
Yeah. I think it's quite wild, isn't it, that we spend forever talking about thousandths of a second difference between cars, which is exciting.
Yes.
But then millimeters of extra track seems to be lost on any form of benefit gain.
Yeah.
It's kind of, no, we can't get excited about the fact that we get to talk about thousandths of seconds, but then we're going to be kind of really hypercritical about a millimeter here or there. It's like,
that's a great point.
The only thing that we have that is genuinely the rule is that white line that runs around either side of the track.
Yeah.
And if you have, two of your four wheels fully outside of that white line, whether it is by a millimeter, that millimeter then potentially turns into that thousandths of a second by the time you cross that line. And that's the point that I think they're trying to police here. Yes, I suppose jeopardy is the right way to describe it, becomes higher and lower depending on where you are in the world. Your track limits jeopardy at Silverstone is going to be, well, that's fine, I can really push this. Yeah. But as Franco Colapinto found out at Vegas, your track limits jeopardy at Vegas is considerably smaller, and the risk that you run by extending there becomes a lot bigger and causes more of a headache for your teammates and team to be able to build your car back together again. So at the end of the day, the white line is the white line. I'm sure it's incredibly difficult to see at 220 miles an hour while sat with your butt cheeks dragging along the floor. And yes, you will make mistakes, but the white line don't move.
Yep, and it's the same in any other sport. The goal line in football, doesn't change because you wanted it a little bit more or you tried to get the most out of it. The keeper could put in the world's best dive and not get there by a millimetre, and guess what? The ball went over that static line, and Dems da rules. I quite like Qatar as a track. I think the layout is quite nice. We're going to go back to our usual metric of I enjoy driving it in F1 24. I think it flows quite nicely. It should suit McLaren this weekend. I think it would be an interesting thing because there's obviously all that intrigue, isn't there, about their rear wing that was deemed illegal, which is maybe why they struggled a bit at Vegas, and then were they pumping water into the tyres, which I think has been pretty quickly debunked. But in theory, it should be an orangey sort of weekend. I think it's not going to be as hot as it was last year, so I don't think we're going to get into the mandated 800 pit stop situation. And I actually think now with the cars being so close together, now's a great time for a sprint weekend because a sprint weekend now is not a spoiler anymore. When we had a runaway winner and then we sort of knew the order already because there was a defined pecking order, sprint weekend's got a bit spoilery. But there's no spoilers at the minute. There's 7 drivers in the running for everything, and then Colapinto's there as well. So there's, I could see Colapinto winning the sprint because I could see him just going, guess what? Fuck all of you. I'm not braking. So, and you just go the Verstappen 2021 strategy of, I'm not going to brake. If I have to use your car as a brake, then that sounds like a you problem.
Yeah, I mean, he's written off 3 Williams, so why not make it 4?
It's not as if those mechanics have got any more work that they need to be doing.
No. Do you think I would find it hilariously funny if we turned up to Abu Dhabi and there was no Williams at all. Because they've just gone, we've literally got nothing left, lads. There is a couple of boxes of bits just in the garage whilst Alex Albon and Colapinto turn up and they just unlock the keys to the back of the garage and they're like, lads, we're...
Oh.
Or there's 2 tyres, half a rear wing, a side pod,
and the tyres in there because Pirelli give you those. It's just 4 tyres just sat in the garage in the right spot. Because the Pirelli bloke did his job. He dropped the tyres off where they were meant to go.
Gone. And it's not to say that Williams haven't tried to rebuild it.
Oh, they've rebuilt it brilliantly a number of times.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Williams mechanics, by the way. I mean, that shot after Colapinto pinned it, and you saw a garage of guys and girls just all simultaneously just have death flood over them.
Yeah.
Because you just think you've already worked so much overtime and so hard over the last so many weeks. That's happening again. You know
that big corporation kind of Christmas office situation where HR, who spend their year doing absolutely nothing, decide to make everybody feel a bit Christmassy that time of year. And so they'll get a tub of celebrations and they'll walk around the entire office and allow each staff member one sweet each.
Tinsel around their head, exactly. And they are so loud about it.
Yes, and one might be wearing an inflatable snowman outfit, and they're going, "Happy Christmas, everybody! This is a great time." But that one little kind of Galaxy or Malteser or Snickers, whatever you fancy, can taste so much sweeter for those Williams mechanics that have had to work their balls off all year, isn't it? What a bonus that's going to be at the end of 2024 for them.
I so hope that the Williams mechanics get an actual financial bonus from the team. No. And I know that money is
how? They haven't got any money left.
But have they got no money, or are they at the cost cap? Because they've just brought Mercado on, or whoever it is, and they've got all the money in Argentina. That I just really hope that they can find like a couple $100 each of just... Thank you for this. Even if it's like a 12-month taste card or something each, like, thank you for rebuilding this car 80 times in 4 weeks. And, I mean, I'm going to ask a bold question here to finish the pod, right?
What's going to make it worse is the poor buggers that make the back of the cards. They're only going to have bounties left in that type of celebrations as well.
Do you think, genuinely, and I'm not suggesting that they should, but... If you're an Alex Albon, and probably not Colapinto because he's probably not on anywhere near the money, but should Alex Albon be throwing $500 to his mechanics to be like, lads, thank you so much for actually allowing me to race a car? Like, even regardless of what Williams decide to do you think a driver should be sort of stepping in there a little bit?
It would be lovely, wouldn't it?
It's easy to say when it's not my money. I'll throw that out. It's so easy to say when it's not my money.
Yeah, of course, it would be lovely, and it would make for a brilliant piece of content as well. Yeah, I don't know whether it happens or not.
I don't know how many mechanics are there per garage. Like, how many mechanics
more
does
than
Albon
what you
have?
think, I reckon.
25 or so, do you reckon?
Honestly,
like his garage.
But if somebody said to you there's 30, and then actually you went round and counted them, there were 60 of them.
Yeah,
I don't think you'd even be surprised.
No. But I think there's a lot of people that are behind that fake wall at the back, aren't there?
Yeah, I don't think we'd ever appreciate the true scale of the of putting together a Formula One weekend until you actually got to go there behind the scenes. And I think you'd probably spend the entire weekend walking around like with your chin scraping along the floor, going, "This is mental."
There's a lot of people here. A lot of people on a lot of stuff.
There is some stuff and people. I don't know what they do, but there are a lot of people.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, imagine the cost of all the merch that they're going to have to write off to be able to like tog all of these people up. It's outrageous.
Yeah, no, insanity. Right, that's us. Pre-Qatar. We've got one more race after this, and what I will say is over the next couple of months, I'm probably not going to sound quite as crisp as I do now. But in theory, there should be no disruption to the pod.
More Australian, though.
I will sound more Australian. I will hopefully look ever so slightly more tanned, and the sun might be out a little bit more. But
are you going to see Daniel Ricciardo?
Me and Danny will hang out. I need to buy some Tupperware from his mum. So she's a Tupperware lady. That's not a euphemism. Was a Tupperware lady. I'm talking 15 years ago that we lived a street over
Daniel
from the
might have retired
from the
now.
Richardos. But please do, if you've listened this far, give us a little rating on whichever podcast app you're listening to, because that helps people find us. And if you're watching on YouTube, you should hit like and you should hit subscribe and you should comment underneath which was your favourite part of this podcast and perhaps which was your favourite part of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And if you're seeing anything of us on TikTok and stuff, just hit like. It makes no difference to you, and it makes all the difference to the algorithm. And then more people can come and chat with us. And if you'd like to chat with us, lapdownpod@gmail.com. You can send us some thoughts and stuff. We're going to have like 3 months worth of air to fill here with no racing. So if you've got a hot take that you want us to cover, send us your hot takes. And Dan, if they want to see you do cricket things online, they can do that.
Yeah, at Dan Jads, there's stuff. There is stuff. There might be some exciting things coming. But you never know. You just don't know with cricket, do you?
No, you don't.
How about yourself? So I know you can't see you anyway.
No,
can
you can't
Are
see
you
me
going to be doing anything?
No.
No.
Here.
All right, then fine.
Here is where you can find me. If you want a bit of this face, Lapdown Pod on all your socials is where you've got to find it.
Well, there you go.
That's
See you next week.
See ya.